Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become stepping stones to growth and clarity. Today we are joined by a truly unique voice, someone described as a visionary thought partner. Markus Neukom is the steward of the Institute of CFLI and guides high-level leaders, founders, and visionaries to step beyond old reaction patterns, and he puts it, return to their original design. Creates spaces where legacy, influence, and inner freedom converge, cutting through surface layers to invite leaders into deep clarity and lasting impact. His work challenges conventional ideas around mindset, exploring deeper concepts like soul intelligence and addressing the often unspoken emptiness that can accompany external success. So, Marcus, thank you for coming on the show today. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Izzy.
All right, so let's dive in. Your work is built on this profound idea of returning to original design. Can you share the moment you stopped trying to become and started remembering who you are? So take us back to that specific moment. What was the setback or old pattern you were stuck in that first, that powerful shift in perspective?
I would say it started pretty much in 2020 when I realized that I was in a depression. And as you can imagine, if you are a successful business consultant and executive coach, you are usually the role model for your clients. So you are pretty much Teflon. People reach out to you for answers, for solutions, and you're not used to get to that point where you actually say to yourself, do I still have what it takes to help my clients? Am I still in a position to actually coach others and teach others while being so low as I was? If you ever have been in a depression, you know what I'm talking about. It's not fun. So that's literally when I asked the universe, should I stop or should I continue? And interestingly enough, the answer was I should continue. And then I asked, should I even post on LinkedIn anymore? And the universe replied, yes. So it gave me basically 10 different solutions to talk about or, topics. And the one topic, number 7, was imposter syndrome. And I believe when I started to think about imposter syndrome, that was the beginning of that journey. But that journey of returning to your original design didn't come into fruition until a year ago when I came to the US. Because, I suddenly realized there is so much that I believe I was. And when I started to ask this question again, why am I here in the US and why I'm here alive? I suddenly realized, gosh, so much I had believed I was, stood for, and I was talking about was basically what the world taught me that I had to become. So the original design is, picture it this way, Ezekiel. You're born and you are born with a perfect blueprint. So you have your soul with you and the soul has a plan. So what happens is as soon as you can talk, as soon as you can think, as soon as the environment, society, parents, friends, friends believe that you can take on new concepts, basically the world tells you who you have to become. So the natural programming gets over-programmed. And so picture it this way. Your soul, when you're born, it's basically sitting in you. And the more the world tells you who you have to become, the more the soul is getting pushed out of its seat. So you suddenly realize, gosh, it's my brain that dictates how to think. It is concepts. It is society that tells me how I have to be. And I basically totally forget who I really am. So if you think about it in terms of business, in terms of entrepreneurs, we are all living outside of ourselves. And the return to original design means going on a journey back inside. That's where soul intelligence comes into, where we definitely are going to talk about. But this was literally the point for me when I asked, why am I here? Basically, I was saying, there must be more. This can't be it. And that's when I went on that journey and I realized, gosh, I had literally developed a persona based on what the world told me I had to become. And the return to original design is to put aside everything I had learned. And interestingly enough, I wasn't empty after that, but I suddenly understood who I really am. So it's basically being a hamster in a hamster wheel, running, to realizing, no, I'm not a hamster. I don't need to be in this hamster wheel. I'm a human being. So when I realized I am a human being, that's when I started to understand, okay, now it's the remembering process which leads me to a point of original design. Because I believe most people, Ezekiel, we are not who we are supposed to be. We are a product of society. And that's why we have so many problems in this world. It's a bit of a long answer, but I think it's necessary.
Okay, that was a fantastic backstory, DA Marcus. So, in that moment of trying to become, what did it feel like? And also, was that connected to imposter syndrome?
It definitely started with the imposter syndrome. I quickly realized that imposter syndrome is not really the problem. So there is a huge school of coaches out there who say imposter syndrome has to be dealt with. In my opinion, imposter syndrome is not the problem. Imposter syndrome is a symptom. It's a very dangerous symptom. So imagine, put it this way, let's stay with the imposter syndrome for a moment. If you take the word syndrome and you add imposter, can you explain to me what imposter syndrome means?
In my own opinion, it's feeling like you are not the person people think you are, or you are not qualified to do the things people believe you can do, or people that's the impression that people have about you. So that's the way I see it.
It's interesting. So I can tell you, when I ask 100 people, I probably get about 50 different opinions. So when you have this, and I very much agree with what you said, Ezekiel, but when you have this understanding, how do you get out of imposter syndrome?
Well, I think for me, I'll just try to work on myself to the point where I'm confident enough that I am that person that people have impression that I am. I can deliver what people think I can deliver. I am qualified enough, you understand? So I'll work hard to be sure of that internally.
So you see how crazy this is. You are basically doing something so the outside world believes that you have what it takes, which then makes you believe that you have what it takes. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So think about this. When I work with somebody in terms of imposter syndrome, I call it pseudo imposter syndrome because imposter syndrome itself is a symptom. So the first step to understand how to get out of imposter syndrome is to understand I do not know myself. That is the big problem. I have no clue who I am. I have no clue how I became who I am. And I have no clue where I want to go and how I get there. That is imposter syndrome. So if you go on Merriam-Webster, the dictionary, and if you look up imposter syndrome, it says something beautifully. Despite of knowing, it's not hoping, not wishing, desiring, it's knowing you have what it takes, you still doubt yourself. Think about that. Despite of knowing you have what it takes, you still doubt yourself. So I give you a beautiful trick for that. Literally look at one of your successes, Ezekiel, and think about what did you do to get to this success. If you're into cooking or baking, you can take a cake and you can deconstruct this cake into its ingredients. So every success can be deconstructed into its elements. And if you do that, then you do that with another success. Then you do it with another success. And you do it with another success. So basically, why people walk into imposter syndrome is because they don't believe they have what it takes. And why they don't believe what it takes is because they have no proof.
Mm.
But as soon as you do the work, you take one success in your life and started taking it apart, then you take many more successes, and then you suddenly have a whole manual of ingredients which give you the confidence that you have what it takes. Because literally comes down to, if you don't know yourself, would you trust yourself? No, you would not.
Yeah.
So people have to understand it doesn't matter how old you are. We do normally not know ourselves. And I can tell you, if somebody is 53 years old like me, to say honestly, I don't have much clue who I am. But the more I learn about myself, the more fun life becomes.
Mm.
So imposter syndrome literally is a symptom of, I have no bloody clue of who I am. I have no clue how I became who I am. And thus I have no clue how to get to the next step. But
Mm.
something inside tells me, gosh, I have what it takes, but I just don't trust it. And the don't trust it, the it is me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't trust anyone who I don't know. So literally get to know yourself, and this will give you the confidence required to literally conquer any challenge and any struggle in life. But it's the
Okay.
key. We have to get to know ourselves first.
Fantastic. So you talk about how imposter syndrome is not really the problem, and you also give really great tips on how to conquer imposter syndrome by actually getting to know ourselves. So if imposter syndrome is not the actual problem, what would you say it is?
It is literally us not knowing ourselves. I give you
Hmm.
an example. If I tell you that I met somebody in a bar and I wasn't really sober anymore and the other person wasn't either, and that person said to me, Marcus, I can bring you to the Mount Everest and you can bring a friend, you can bring Ezekiel. You probably would think, Marcus, no, I will not join you because you just met this guy in a bar. But now
Hmm.
if I come and say, you know what? I know John for quite some time, and he is really good at what he's doing, you might consider joining. So the problem is, how would you trust someone you do not know? That's the problem. People believe, I am 20, I am 30, I am 40, I am 50, I am 60, I'm 70, I am 80 years old. Heck, I know myself. Believe me, if you knew yourself, you would not suffer from imposter syndrome
Hmm.
because you would know, gosh, I have what it takes and I have proof enough that I have what it takes, and I would literally just do it.
Great. Great. So, Marcus, what does it really mean to go back to one's original design?
So, you know, what it really means is starting to lose everything you believed you are. You suddenly realize, gosh, the things I believe in, are they really my beliefs? Or are they beliefs from society? The stuff that is valuable to me, is it based on what I personally value, or is it what the world told me that I have to believe in? So basically what it means is starting to question literally everything in life, literally everything, and wonder, the voices I have in my head, are they my voices or are they the ones I have picked up from other people? It's literally a
Hmm.
journey, and it starts with stillness.
Okay.
But in the end,
So,
it comes down to questioning everything, and then you start to remember who you really are.
right. So, Marcus, what's the first practical step you would take to cultivate the stillness required to hear that original design?
Okay, so you see what's really interesting? The people I meet, Ezekiel, they usually have one question which repeats itself in their minds or in their hearts ongoing. And the question is like that: is this as good as it gets, or is there more to my life. Because, people get to a point, they are very successful, and they suddenly answer or ask themselves, is this it? Is this as good as it gets? There must be more. And
Mm.
then all it takes is to become silent, maybe just close your eyes and just basically say to the universe or to God or whatever you believe in, please show me what the more is. Let's assume there is more. Now I want to find out what the more is. And you know what's interesting, Ezekiel? Most people believe that the more is more. Like if I have one bottle, the more would be to have 2 or 3 bottles. If I have one
Mm.
house, it might be 2 or 3 houses. If I have a boat, it might be a bigger boat. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
people try to get more and more in the outside, but stillness actually stops that process. It suddenly opens up because let me explain to you what stillness really is. Stillness happens then when your thoughts and your heart become coherent. That's when they start literally running in coherence. Because when they are in coherence, thought doesn't try to beat your heart and the heart doesn't try to stop your mind, but they start beating in coherence. That's
Yeah.
when the channel to your soul opens up. And when the channel to your soul opens up, that's when the answers are coming. So
Mm.
literally take a moment of quiet and say to yourself, okay, if there is more, what is it? And then just be patient because the answers will come. It's not something I can snip my fingers and say, you know what, let's get the answers. It's a process. It's almost like a muscle you have to train. And as you know, stillness is pretty much the opposite of what the world teaches today.
Mm.
It's like stress is normal, right? More is
Mm.
normal. Running in a hamster wheel is normal. And stillness is literally the opposite what the world teaches you to do today.
Okay. So can you quickly tell us about what you call the alchemy and leaps framework and how they can be used to unlock real transformation?
You see what's interesting? The LEAPS framework was something I created when I was in the process myself. And LEAPS came then when I realized that most management modules out there, leadership development modules, they don't really work so well. So they fall short. Right now, I wouldn't even be able to tell you what LEAPS really means because I haven't used it for so long.
Mm.
However, what I can say, alchemy is basically the key to leaps. So if you want to look up, whoever listens or watches the show, if you want to look up on my LinkedIn profile, leaps and as well as alchemy, you can read everything. But what it literally is about is becoming real about who you really are. And alchemy is a step-by-step process you can follow. However, most people love to literally have alchemy as a key, which they can turn, and then they are here. I
Mm.
believe the key is really stillness. And so often, Ezekiel, people try to get methods, and I created those methods as a process for myself until I realized the real key is stillness.
Mm.
All the methodologies, they don't lead you to nowhere. They just help you for more distortion. They help you for more confusion.
Mm.
But the real key is stillness.
Fantastic.
Literally saying, you know what? Let's just stop that stress for a moment. Let's just take like 5 minutes. Let's just close my eyes for a moment and say to the universe or to whoever would you want to talk to, and say, look, I believe there must be more. Please show me what that more is. And I can tell you, the more is actually quite easy. The more is inside you, and the journey from outside to inside, that is the one we have to take.
Great.
But it's a
So
journey.
interesting, Marcus. So, how did your personal setback directly lead to the creation of your frameworks? Were there, kind of like a story or, a motivation from your prior setbacks that led to you building up these practical frameworks to help other people?
Yeah. So if you look at it, we go back to 2020 when I fell into this depression. I would call this quite a setback. When you suddenly start questioning everything you do, and when you start questioning who you are, that's quite a setback. And that's when I realized, okay, if I am at this point, how many more people might be at this point where they ask, is this as good as it gets, or is there more to my life? And what I've basically been doing is I took everything I've done myself and started creating methodologies out of it. So I was able to share it with other people who were in the same process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But then, as I said, I realized the real key is stillness. Because you know what's interesting? As soon as I give a methodology to you, you start using the
Mm.
methodology outside. But if I tell you, Ezekiel, all the answers you're looking for, all the solutions you're looking for are all inside. And if somebody asks me, but Marcus, how do I find the way inside? And that's stillness. That is stillness. And that is the key.
Mm. Stillness indeed is the key to unlocking a whole lot. So really nice to know that. So Marcus, for the leader listening who is successful on paper but feels empty, who resonates with that feeling of trying to become something they are not, what's the first step you recommend they take to start remembering and reconnecting with their original design? Stillness, of course, yeah? Is that it?
Yes. So you see what's interesting? The person who listens now or watches us and has that question, is this as good as it gets? Or is there more to life? The very clear answer to that person is yes, there is more. So what I absolutely recommend is that you go on my LinkedIn profile and that you
Mm.
read my about section. Because in my about section, you will basically find part of your answers you're looking for. But stillness is absolutely the key. Yeah.
So, having guided so many leaders and navigated your own profound shifts, what does being successful truly mean to you?
It's a great question. In earlier days, I would have probably said money, fame, connections. And today, I would say success is for me to be able to do and to say no to whatever I want to at any time. Basically, being free for me is success.
Wow, that's a really new perspective to hear what being successful means to someone. This has been a really insightful conversation. For our listeners who are inspired by this conversation and want to follow or learn more about your work, where's the best place for them to go?
At the moment, it's absolutely my LinkedIn profile. So go on Markus Neukom, just Markus Neukom on LinkedIn, and you'll see my face. Send me a connection request and send me a message. And I would love to either have a message exchange or hop on a call and just get to know each other.
Great, Marcus. It's been a really great conversation with you, and I'm really honored to have you on the show today, sir.
Thank you for having me. Likewise.